Join Patti Conklin and Healing Within Radio each week. More than entertainment, Healing Within offers educational, useful tools for everyday life. Listen for help overcoming fear, anxiety, and depression. Patti knows about eliminating cancer, MS, dementia, Parkinson's, and a host of illnesses that we face every day. Life can be good. Life is good. All you need are simple tools to start changing your life. Start right now by visiting PattiConklin.com, PattiConklin. No matter where you are in the world, you can work with Patti through Skype, phone, or in person, visiting one of her retreats in Georgia. Visit PattiConklin.com today, or call our offices at 404-474-0086. That's PattiConklin.com, or call 404-474-0086.
Hi, everyone. This is Patti Conklin and Healing Within. Thank you so much for being a part of today's show and joining my wonderful guests, Linda and Charlie Bloom, are joining me today. And we're just looking for this brand new year. You know, I guess we could say that each month is a brand new year, that we're really bringing in new adventures and new experiences every month. And so Charlie and Linda are relationship counselors, seminar leaders, authors, and life partners. They've been married since 1972, and they co-direct Bloomwork. They have co-written 4 books, including the best-selling 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married. Over 100,000 copies have been sold, and have facilitated many workshops and relationship seminars throughout the USA and internationally since 1986. You can find them at bloomwork.com, their website. And thank you so much, you two, for coming on board and being a part of today's show.
Thank you for inviting us. I'm so glad to be here.
Me too. Thank you.
You too. Good. So what brought you guys together in 1972, and how did working with relationships and teaching relationships and all of the nuances that come with that, how did that come into being?
Well, we had some struggles in the early years that we were together. And so we were already therapists at the time when we got into trouble, and we didn't know what to do. And so we got some really good help, both therapy and workshops. And out of the struggles, finding our answers for how to fight fair, how to apologize well, and to forgive and let go, and to use all of that difficulty as growth opportunity, we felt an obligation to pass it on. Mm-hmm. So it was really out of our own struggles. Our wound became our gift to our community.
Yes, beautiful. Where do you folks reside?
We're in
where's
Santa Cruz,
home?
California. Santa Cruz, California. Yeah.
Got it. Beautiful area out there. Yeah. And so you took this opportunity to go ahead and start teaching and so forth. And what would be one of the main things that you say that as a couple, and you may have each different answers here, that you've walked away from in terms of how you've grown in your teachings?
Well, we've learned the importance of repair, because no matter how hard we try and no matter how committed we are to having a wonderful relationship, there's still going to be breakdowns and misunderstandings and sometimes broken agreements and being forgetful, and we bang into each other's sore spots. And so all of the wonderful couples who are happy and delighting in their relationship, they're champions of repair. And so I think it's really important for couples to know that you can't stop the waves from coming, but you can learn to surf. And so you're going to sometimes fall off of your surfboard, but the faster you get back up there and get balanced again, the happier you're going to be in your partnership. And when people are committed to learning how to repair, you're gonna have a relationship that really works well for both.
Beautiful. Charlie, what's your take on it?
Well, our first book, 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married, that's got 101 of those takes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess the last one, let me just say a little bit about the very last one in the book, the 101st thing. And that is that something I didn't know before, but it's that what's available in a committed partnership, if you can really learn how to leverage the intention and the commitments that you both bring, is infinitely greater, not only than you think it is, but it's greater than you can even imagine that it could be.
Yeah.
So that was a huge awareness for me. And that's not something that you learn in a book necessarily, but it's something that as you do the work and you begin to experience the benefits, you realize, man, there is so much more available here than just what I thought was or what I had even hoped for.
Right, right. And so, and having been together since 1972 or been married since 1972, you've had a lot of years to grow and develop and explore, I guess, different ideas and probably some I don't know if I should say butting heads or different ideas and so forth. So when you look at that 101, I mean, one of the things that I'm a big believer in, and I may be totally off the mark here, is not to have important discussions in known territory, to always go outside of home territory to have really deep, serious discussions. Do you follow that rule, or does it not matter?
Well, every couple has to work out the guidelines that work for them. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously a place where you've found tremendous success. And I'm all about the practical. If being away from home and in a novel setting, particularly I hear from a lot of people that they like to bring up the really tough issues when they're in a restaurant or something.
Right.
Because they have to be more refined. They can't scream and walk
and go off to their own territory. Yep.
And I just think couples need to be creative and experimental. That hasn't been a guideline that we have had to have. Yeah. We can do it at home, but we have had to have a lot of guidelines that help us to stay on track.
Yeah.
You know, to watch tone of voice has been really powerful for me, because I would get a hard edge on my voice and I wouldn't even be aware of it. And before long, I'd be shouting and defensive. And so how to calm myself down, to be able to speak in a respectful way so I didn't invite retaliation and pushback from Charlie.
Right.
And so every couple needs to pay attention. It's a mindfulness practice. We refer to this as relationship as spiritual practice. Mm-hmm. And really pay attention and see the things that are working for them and the things that are not working for them. And then, you know, hold out a vision to your partner of what would really work for you and create some agreements. And don't ever agree to anything unless you're going to back it up. Because it really is going to lift up the trust when you only make agreements that you keep.
Right. And I guess part of that is individually really being honest with yourself and knowing yourself enough to be able to make that promise or agreement of moving forward. Do you find that people come in as couples or individuals and then go into couples, or you know, in terms of your workshops, are people coming in individually or are they coming in as couples?
Well, pretty much almost all of our seminars, we invite individuals and couples to. It just so happens, not surprisingly, that it's mostly couples that do show up.
Yeah.
kind of got this specialty in doing couples work, particularly addressing those aspects of being in a committed partnership that can be challenging or difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the people who are drawn to doing our seminars are mostly couples, but we always get some singles in there too, or a halves of a pair when one person just isn't willing to come, because the person who does come can learn things that can improve the relationship, even if the other person isn't actively involved in that process.
Right. What about those of us who are single, who want relationships, but clearly feel like we're just not doing something quite right to have a lasting relationship? You have people like me on board?
Oh, absolutely. We're all in process.
Right.
And I think sometimes people don't realize that the relationships that are the stepping stone ones, bringing us to hopefully the relationship that's going to last a lifetime, they're all learning experiences. Yeah. And all the single people in the network tell me the same thing. You have to kiss a lot of frogs.
Uh-huh.
and there's nothing wrong with those people. Do you know?
Right.
They're wonderful people. They just might not be a good match for us.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
So if we have learning orientation and a personal growth orientation, then we can see each relationship that we're participating in as lab work.
Mm-hmm.
And I say to the singles in the network, make it over right from the beginning,
right,
that you're learning, and make a contract about you're going to learn for everything that the relationship tosses up.
Yep.
And the darker the material it fleshes up, the more opportunity for learning there about what you definitely don't want going forward, or what you need to work on in yourself to be eligible for a great,
That's right.
relationship.
We will continue that on the other side, but I call that the SHIT effect, the spiritual human in transition, because we're learning. So, folks, it's Patti Conklin and Healing Within, and I'm with Linda and Charlie Bloom, and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. It's Patti Conklin and Healing Within, and I am with Linda and Charlie Bloom, who are relationship experts, relationship counselors, but just in the first segment, I get a real feel that they know what they're talking about. So that's important to me. When I look at, when I read something, you two have been married since 1972, I'm always in awe of relationships that grow and blossom and continue for that period of time. And I know that you've laid out a few of the things that make it happen, that you have to be careful of or mindful of, and so forth. So first, I want to just say kudos, because I think that that's beautiful, and you obviously are walking your truth in what you're teaching, because you're living examples of it. So when we look at unique qualities of exceptional relationships and learn ways to develop those qualities, do you ever reach a point where you've just learned enough and you don't grow more, or does it take a sidetrack and it goes somewhere else? What happens after like 8 years in, or 16 years in, or 17 years in, or 20 years in? What happens? We're asking. I'm coming from somewhere where like my longest relationship's been 7 years, so I can't look at like a 25 year. It's amazing to me, and maybe it shouldn't be, but it is. So What really brings you there?
Well, first of all, thank you for the acknowledgement, and kudos to you for being aware of what we consider to be the most important quality that can predispose a person and a couple to have a successful relationship. You mentioned it just a few minutes ago, but we didn't spend any time on it, and I want to come back to it and underscore it. And you mentioned being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And that is the bottom line. To be willing to be, I don't like the term brutally honest, because honesty doesn't ever have to be brutal.
Totally agree. Yeah.
But it can certainly be, very clear. And honesty is something that, if we don't bring self-honesty into the relationship, we're not going to be able to be honest with other people. Even when we think we're being honest, if we're lying to ourselves about something, or if we're in denial, or if we're covering something up, then everything is going to be filtered through that lens. And so, we can't really be authentic. We can't really be genuine or honest. And that's the bottom line, because what do we want in relationship? Well, pretty close to 100% of the people who get into relationship, what they want is really simple, and it's to be loved and to have somebody receive their love.
Right.
That's the bottom line. But you can never feel genuinely loved for who you are if you're not honest about who you are, and you're not willing to express who you are honestly with integrity. You'll never feel that. You'll always feel that, they like me, but they don't really know me. They know who I am trying to be.
Yeah.
If you don't feel totally accepted and understood and received for who you authentically are, then you can never get the love that you want. The best you can do is get approval, and that's a far cry from genuine love.
Right. I mean, that's so meaningful, what you laid out there. I mean, because I think that for some of us, I've gone into this stage in the last 8-9 years, watching my sons get married and have children, and realizing that the partners that they chose are absolutely perfect for them. And I look at that and I'm proud, because I'm like, wow, we definitely did learn some relationship things as we grew as a family. And they chose women that are uniquely fit for them. And fortunately, because the sons are so close, the daughter-in-laws have also become very close, because they're unique, beautiful women. So I probably have never really spent time looking at relationships until I started looking at that, going, wow, you can really make it work. And it's not that they don't have their trials and tribulations at times, but I love how they work through them and discuss them and move beyond them, especially when parenting comes into play and different parental styles. So, I think that relationships are so important across the board. I mean, I guess I'm just not in this belief that we're meant to be single as we go through life. So as people move into growing their relationships and coming to the two of you as counselors and coming to a workshop, are there any relationships that come in that you just say, you know what, we got to really start from ground zero here? Or do they have enough built that they can take the next step? I guess, I'm a neophyte in this, obviously. So, but are there relationships that just come in that you're really having to go back to ground zero?
Occasionally, but it doesn't happen very often.
Mm-hmm.
A couple will request a joint appointment, but they're so walled off, with bitterness or anger, that they have to see us individually first to be able to get up to doing a joint session.
Right.
Most of the people, the vast majority, and we've been in the business for, over 4 decades.
Right.
They have enough commitment and enough openness that they can actually sit down in a room together. And we see a lot of people by Skype and Zoom. So sometimes they're not here physically with us, but their commitment is often in the beginning to get the therapist on their side, to make the other person wrong.
Right. Create the wrong.
And so right away in the beginning, we set a context where each person is going to be looking at themselves, and they can count on us to put the correction in if they start confessing the other person's sins.
Right.
Yeah. And that it's really all on the job training, that it's all see what the relationship is fleshing up, and what is this showing you about some work that you need to do, about patience or courage or forgiveness or making an effective apology or letting go or higher level of responsibility or whatever it is.
Right.
And when people change channels like that, that's when the therapy really starts to go somewhere, that they keep their attention on themselves and what they're doing or not doing or saying or not saying, and getting their attention off of their partner.
Right.
That's locating the power and influence in ourselves. Well, we're trying to fix the other person. We just want to do the home improvement plan for their own good, of course.
Right.
We're missing the boat.
Yeah.
So really to keep the attention back to ourselves. And if they can do that, it sets up a spirit of goodwill.
Yeah.
And that invites the other person to look more deeply about how they may contribute to the relationship in a positive way or not such a positive way. And then they can start to see how they can put the corrections in between the sessions. And that's when it starts to really come alive.
And they're really stopping that you did, the starting the statement with the you did. One of the things that I come back to is, I'm having an issue. Because if I'm having an issue in a relationship, it's my issue. It's not necessarily my partner's. It's my issue. And I invite them to come in and help me with my issue. And it may be about them, but I'm giving them permission to get in there and be a part of it because I'm the one having the issue with it. If they're not, maybe, that works for me, it seems like, in some of the cases. But it seems like with people that want to prove the other person wrong so they can be right, that needs to stop. And like you said, just setting those ground rules so that they don't come in that way. And they're really taking that personal responsibility for how they're feeling. Yeah. So how do you gain tools to promote enduring love and trust?
Good question. The first step is acknowledging to yourself, and if you have a partner, to your partner, that you haven't learned everything yet.
Yeah.
And for some of us, that is a difficult thing to admit because it feels vulnerable to acknowledge. I still have more to learn. I don't know it all, even though sometimes I forget that and think that I do. And,
good chuckle there, Linda. I'm gonna hold you at that point, Charlie, and wait for the next next segment as we.
I have a friend who says that sometimes. But,
I want to hear.
That,
I want to hear more about that as we come back from the next break. But yeah, I think it's important for us to recognize that we're still embryos.
Yeah.
So yeah. So folks, it's Patti Conklin and Healing Within. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. It's Patti Conklin and Healing Within. And we are discussing relationships today with Linda and Charlie Bloom. And you can find Linda and Charlie at bloomwork.com. That's BLOOMWORK.com. And I got to say, I love the energy between you two. And your tonal qualities when you're speaking. I'm learning a lot just even from the energies on this. So Charlie, I'm sorry I had to cut you off on our last segment, but continue on, because I think it really is important. I think in every aspect of our life that I always say that the more I know I'm an embryo, that I'm constantly growing and expanding, and if I'm not learning, then maybe I'm stagnating. And so how do we continue that within relationships so that the relationship doesn't stagnate? What are those continued tools that we use?
And the more I know, the more I realize I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I see, when I was younger, I thought I knew everything. And then I started learning a few things. And one of the things that I learned was, first of all, that I don't know everything. And then I started to learn more. And the more I learned, the more I realized how much more there is to learn. So,
yeah.
If what I know now, is the size of a penny, mm-hmm. then maybe what there is to learn is maybe the size of a football field.
Yeah.
Or more. It's humbling, It really is humbling because, we all want to think that, I got this together. I know enough here. And then that's a dangerous thing to believe. First of all, because it's never true. Mm-hmm. Never. There's always more to learn. And when you begin to associate the possibility of learning more and begin to experience the pleasure of what it feels like to become more competent by learning more, and the excitement of the learning process, which we all had before we learned not to enjoy learning from our education system.
Right.
The more we get that, the more enthusiastic we get about learning. It's no longer an embarrassment not to know things. It's okay. It's better than okay, because it opens the door to the question of, well, how can I learn more about this? Because the more I learn, the fuller my life is, and the more relaxed and the more I enjoy things. And I really, when I get to enjoy the learning process, I no longer have to be embarrassed because there are things that I don't know. I no longer have to pretend that I've got it all together. And life just is much easier when I'm not burdened by the responsibility to demonstrate to the world that I am the person that I think will impress them. I can just be myself.
Yourself, yeah. Do you feel like societal concepts or cultural concepts put that more on the masculine, that they should know, or they should have things under control, or be the teachers? I mean, when we look through history, we have so much focus on the male having that role. And I think it's not fair. Not sure that I agree with that men should need to be that. But do you see that when couples first come in, that's part of the problem, is the male feels like he should know and he doesn't?
Oh, absolutely. But it's not just the man who feels under the weight of the obligation to be that knowing person. Mm-hmm. I think women have their own version of that kind of programming.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily to know and to be strong and to have it all together all the time and to be able to handle all situations. But it's to be a certain kind of a person that they believe, and the culture has reinforced in their mind, will be seen as being more attractive to men. So sometimes, there's a lot of men who are not attracted at all to a woman who's particularly intelligent. In fact, they prefer somebody who they think is less intelligent than they are.
Right.
So we all, both genders, have their own kind of conditioning that kind of puts them in a model that they feel required to live up to, which makes it really difficult to be authentic and genuine.
Yes. And Patti, you're absolutely right when you talk about the cultural brainwashing that goes on.
Yes.
That you're supposed to pretend that you have the answers and know, even when deep inside you know that you're confused and that you don't know. But you posture and you present a presentation to the world and to the people who are closest to you, act like you've got it together when you're really pretty mixed up.
Right.
I'm often appealing to the women in the classes that we teach and in the counseling session to step into a leadership role, because often women have a sense of what the relationship needs to up level, and they don't trust into it, or they think that the man is going to feel controlled, or they're being too aggressive or too bossy or too bitchy or whatever.
Right.
Hold back.
Yeah.
And so it really is a deterrent when people are posturing that way, because one of the foundational teachings that we offer is about being courageous enough to be vulnerable and show your innermost self. And so women get a little bit more permission from the culture to do that. And so I invite them to model for the men and set a good example. Talk about your fears, talk about your loneliness, talk about your longing, talk about your sadness.
Yeah.
And to allow the heart to open, and that will touch him in a way that his heart will open, and that he can start treading on that ground, where both people are really more awake and open and available for a powerful connection with each other.
Right. And that's so important. I mean, I know in the early years, when my sons were growing up, I was single and I was traveling the world teaching. So when I was home, I didn't date because I didn't want my sons to have to compete with a relationship. They didn't have enough time with me as it was. And so, we kind of set that to the side. And when I started dating, girlfriends would say, just put on the dating site or whoever that you're a cashier. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to start out that I'm a cashier, because I'm starting the whole basis of the relationship on a lie.
Right.
So I'm not going to go there. But what I would do occasionally, just to kind of, because I was paying attention to what they were paying attention to with me, males. And what I found was, if I gave them my name, they'd Google the last 30 years. And so they had my work persona and their perception of who they thought I was from my work persona, and not me as a woman. And so I've always kind of sat with, is it okay to give my maiden name, so that they're not Googling me right away, so that they get to know me and they don't have this awe or this preconceived notion of who I am based on my work. And I know a lot of women in successful businesses and so forth feel the same way. We all seem to be single. What's the solution? Is there a solution?
Well, I personally have never had the problem of worrying about people maybe thinking that I'm too competent. Or too intelligent.
I love it.
I've had other problems, but
not that one.
I can't relate to that from my experience. But I think that regardless of what it is that you're up against in terms of certain personal or cultural biases or stereotypes, that we all are, vulnerable to getting judged on the basis of beliefs that people might associate with
Right.
us. So I think that, it's a more generic question, in terms of, well, how do I deal with that? How do I deal with, the likelihood that somebody who is responding to something that I'm putting out there on one of these dating sites
Mm-hmm.
made up their mind to a large degree before they've even spoken with me,
Right.
on the basis of what they've heard about me or read about me or whatever, that they've already begun to develop certain biases, both in terms of their positive expectations of me, which I may not be able to live up to,
Right.
or their negative beliefs about me, none of which may be true, or some of may be, but then they're only seeing this tiniest tip of the iceberg,
Right.
and it's probably somewhat distorted. So like, how do I deal with that?
Yeah.
My response to that is that when I am with that person, when I'm communicating with them, I just try to be as authentic and as real and as I can be. And I don't
And
mean.
I'm gonna ask you to hold that thought because we got to take a break, but we'll come
Okay.
right back to it, folks. It's Patti Conklin and Healing Within. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. It's Patti Conklin and Healing Within, and I am with Linda and Charlie Bloom, and you can find them at bloomwork.com. And I encourage you all to go, if you're single or if you're in a relationship, go to their workshops and read 101. What is the title? 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married, and see what you learn, because I know you're going to learn something. So, Charlie, I'm going to bring you back to that uniqueness and being authentic as you move into relationships and or are in relationships, because I'm assuming that people in long-term relationships, as they individually grow, it may shake up the relationship, the marriage some, because we want people to individually grow and grow within the marriage. Correct?
Well, hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, we want ourselves to be one of the people that we want to grow.
Yeah.
Yet, surprisingly, many of us do not have that value. Because growing is intrinsically dangerous, because we all like to be secure in a certain identity. And when we grow, we leave aspects of ourselves behind. Sometimes we begin to move into aspects of ourselves that we hadn't fully experienced before. And it feels a little insecure. It feels, we start to have some concerns about, well, are people going to like the new me? Or I didn't used to be this way, but now I feel like I'm becoming more this way. And not everybody seems to like the new me. They seem to prefer the way I used to be. We get used to being with us, with people as we have known them. So, but like you say, growth is inevitable. It's only a matter of whether or not we embrace the growth and appreciate it and accept that as a natural part of life, and which makes life incredibly more interesting, or whether we resist it.
Right.
So anything, Linda, that you want to say about that?
Yeah, I was going to just pop over there to Linda. What do you think, Linda?
I wanted to say that we're all in process all the time.
Yeah.
And if we can just face the truth of that fact, that we can be lifelong learners our whole lifetime, that we don't, ever stop with that. And I felt that I wanted to pick up that thread, Patty, that you were concerned that if the men that you were seeing on the online dating sites saw how accomplished you were in your career, that maybe they would be intimidated by that and withdraw from the challenge.
Uh-huh.
And my attitude is that we're all such a mixed bag.
Right.
And whether it's the man or the woman who's had a lot of eggs in the professional basket, they may have had a knock 'em dead career, but while they were busy, launching that fabulous career, maybe there were other parts of their life that weren't addressed sufficiently, creative expression, their
Absolutely.
spiritual life,
Yeah.
and that it can level the playing field. This is if you have access to be able to talk to them and don't withdraw from the challenge.
Right.
They're not willing to give you a chance to say that you have your strengths and you have your growing edge, just like they have their strengths and their growing edge. And as long as they're not so competitive with you and they've developed the part in themselves that is a supporter and that they really are looking for somebody that can make their needs and their life goals as important as their own, you've got a good deal going there.
Yeah.
And I just tell all the singles in the network, to put the truth out there. Don't stand behind the image too long. You don't have to tell them your deepest and darkest on the first date. But soon, get real soon. And if you have a concern, put the concern out sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I think that that's really important. I think my perspective through the years is honesty is the best. And like you said, you don't need to dump it all on the first get together. But within a very short time of just this is my professional career, and that's not necessarily who I am as a woman, and this is who I am as a woman, and this is what I'd like to focus on in terms of moving forward. And I think that not only is that a challenge as a single woman, but I think that there are times when women within relationships move into new careers or new adventures and so forth, and their partners and husbands just kind of sit back and go, whoa, wait a minute, I don't recognize you. What just took place? And one of the things that I've said, many times in my books and writings and so forth is I love how my sons love me. And I think that that's kind of what I look for at times. And I think we do when we have people who truly love us. And I jokingly say, but it's sincere. I love how my sons love my eccentric behavior. And they don't judge my eccentric behavior. They embrace it because they know that that's just who I am. And it's a loving, fun eccentric, but it's eccentric. And they're so at peace with it. They don't shift to, even when they were teenagers, they didn't attempt to change me. They weren't saying, Mom, you're embarrassing me. They're like, that's my mom. That's what's happening. So, I think that
it's beautiful.
The whole relationship aspects for people is so important, because I'm sure as I do, you folks see people who have just kind of given up and maybe aren't putting the effort in. And for so many, they started with that excitement and that deep love and so forth. And it's a little sad to see them pulling back from that and not knowing how to reconnect with each other. So the couples that are out there that are struggling with the reconnect, Linda, what would you offer them as a first step of reconnecting?
To allow their imagination to be big.
Mm-hmm.
To not let the disappointments shrink their expectations down so small that they're not reaching. We sometimes hear people say, I've got to really ratchet my expectations down. And we say, don't lower your expectations, but you're going to have an intention to match it if you're going to have a lofty expectation. In fact, Charlie and I wrote a book, The Secrets of Great Marriages, just because we were interfacing with so many people who had become so disillusioned and bitter.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of people say to us, I don't know one couple who has a happy relationship. And I would stop them and say, I'm really happy in my marriage.
Right.
I didn't always feel this way, but we have been working at it, and we grew a really healthy, wholesome marriage, and I'm delighting in it. And it was shocking to some people to hear that. Some people didn't believe it.
Right.
But we went on a quest, and we found the happiest couples we could find and let them tell their stories in their own words, their success stories in their own words. And all of them had been through some difficult passage, at least one, sometimes more than one. But they did learn and grow. And I would say to the people who were feeling kind of depressed and kind of defeated and kind of disappointed, just don't give up. There's some really lovely people who are willing to grow with you, to roll up their sleeves. They've got some commitment. They've got some energy. They've got some mojo to co-create with you. And I've often had people in the network say, what do you think is the most important characteristic to look for in a partner? And I struggled for a long time whether kindness was going to get the number one spot or whether the willingness to learn and grow was going to be number one. And I ended up putting the willingness to learn and grow first before kindness. They're both important, of course.
Yes.
But if you have that bottom line, of we'll learn together. Let's use this relationship as the growth opportunity, then both people can really thrive. Maybe it's not going to last a lifetime.
Right.
Maybe it'll be months or a year or two, and that's a success if the two people have learned together about who they are and what they want in a partnership.
That's so awesome. Charlie, I'm going to give you the last minute. What would you say?
The question is what?
The question is, if people are disillusioned, what's the first thing to go back to pull the relationship or start to bring the relationship back together?
Okay, well, one thing that I think is really helpful is to remind yourself of what initially drew you to this person in the first place. Mm-hmm. What was it that you found so compelling about them that you decided that this was somebody that you wanted to be with, maybe for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Because that's one of the first things to go when we have unresolved differences that don't get handled in a relationship, is we forget what it was in the first place. And there's always something there that when people can get back in touch with that after they've forgotten it. And it's easy to forget it when something obscures that memory because you're upset or you're hurt or you're feeling resentful towards your partner and you haven't dealt with that.
Right.
There's always something to go back to that can help you to anchor yourself back in that experience again.
Thank you so much for that. Folks, you're listening to Charlie and Linda Bloom. Find them at bloomwork.com. Thank you so much. This is Patti Conklin and Healing Within, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Patti Conklin grew up in Brooktondale, New York with a unique ability. Unlike others, she could see how the vibration of words and emotions affected the physical body. She discovered how to release stored emotion and facilitate healing. This began today's Conklin method of cellular cleansing. The private practice grew with tremendous results, as did her reputation. More and more people sought her out, bringing her into the home for healing. She soon realized she could even teach this to others, and they could shift perception and thus prevent illness from occurring. Patti Conklin quickly became a frequent keynote speaker, and she developed a curriculum for teaching the Conklin method of cellular cleansing. For more information, visit PattiConklin.com, PattiConklin, PattiConklin.com, or call 404-474-0086. That's 404-474-0086.